Everything you hear in this video is alleged and for entertainment purposes only. I have questions. Is it more than a coincidence that both collegiate and professional sports have grown into multi-billion-dollar industries that millions of people across the world spend their entire childhood and even young adulthood pursuing? Is it more than a coincidence that the inventor of basketball, baseball, and American football were all members of a secret order? Is it more than a coincidence that there are several professional athletes that all show an allegiance to the same dark forces? Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and stick around as we both cover and uncover the open secret about collegiate and professional sports. Peace. Welcome to another episode of More Than a Coincidence, which is a new series underneath the umbrella of my podcast, which is called, of course, the Ruling Class Podcast. For those of you who have been here, I want to say I appreciate your support. For those of you who are new, welcome. And I ask that you like, share, and please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And check out some of my older content as well. I work very hard on these videos, and when you do that, it really helps the channel. Thank you. James Naismith, born November 6, 1861 in Almonte, Ontario, Canada, was a Canadian-American physical educator, physician, Christian chaplain, sports coach, and also the inventor of basketball. After moving to the United States, he wrote the original basketball rulebook and founded the University of Kansas basketball program. Many people love the sport of basketball but know very little about its origin. The invention of basketball was actually derived from Naismith playing a game that involved throwing a small stone at much larger stones to knock it down on opposing players. Well, Naismith realized that it would be much more effective if the quote-unquote stone was a lot softer, and that's how it eventually led to him inventing basketball. But what if I told you that James Naismith was much more than just the inventor of basketball? What if I told you that basketball was not only created for the purposes of playing a game, but had another agenda as well? That there was and has always been a much more darker and sinister agenda attached to the sport that isn't just a coincidence. James Naismith is also a Freemason, and the invention of basketball has now led to a massive industry both on a collegiate and professional level. Walter Camp, born April 7, 1859 in New Britain, Connecticut, was an American football player, coach, sports writer, and is coined as the quote-unquote father of American football. Camp entered Yale in 1875, where he played and coached college football. Many people love the sport of American football, but know very little about its origin. Starting off as something called rugby, Camp created and implemented the line of scrimmage, system of downs, the snapback from center, the point system, and even the standard offensive arrangement of players. He was also credited for introducing the quote-unquote safety points and was part of the rules committee until he died. For such a huge contribution, this is why he is called the quote-unquote father of American football. But what if I told you that Walter Camp was much more than just the father of American football? What if I told you that football was not only created for the purposes of playing a game, but had another agenda as well? Walter Camp, just like James Naismith, was also, yep, you guessed it, a Freemason. And he was a member of the notorious secret society at Yale known as Skull and Bones. This organization, very well known for its share of conspiracy theories, has had many prominent members over the years, such as former presidents George H.W. Bush and his son, George W. Bush. If you would like to see the open secret about Skull and Bones, please comment Skull and Bones below. If 100 people comment Skull and Bones, that will be one of my next videos. Abner Doubleday, born June 26, 1819 in Ballston Spa, New York, was a career United States Army officer, Union Major General in the American Civil War, and also the inventor of baseball. Doubleday entered the United States Military Academy in 1838. Many people love the sport of baseball, but know very little about its origin. There has been a dispute over the years as to whether or not Abner was the true inventor of baseball, but majority recognize Abner as the creator inside of museums, with monuments, and within history books. But what if I told you that Abner Doubleday was much more than just the proclaimed inventor of baseball? What if I told you that baseball was not only created for the purposes of playing a game, but had another agenda as well? Doubleday, just like Walter Camp and James Naismith, was also, yep, you guessed it again, a Freemason. He was also the president of an esoteric and occultic organization called the Theosophical Society. Theosophy, for those of you who don't know, comes from Greek, and it basically means gods of wisdom or divine wisdom. The invention of baseball has now led to a massive industry, both on a collegiate and professional level. Many people don't even know that the three sports were all started by Freemasons. Now, what are the chances? Only Freemasons can think of something so creative? Of course not. And notice how all three men were born during the early to mid 1800s, with the first two men that I named born just 2 years apart. Is that more than a coincidence? A lot of you may say, well, what's the big deal? So what, sports were started by Freemasons? Well, it's a major deal because I am under the belief that Freemasons not only control most things that we see and hear in this world, but they greatly shape the way many of us view the way of life in general, especially in America. And these sports are a major component in shaping our thought patterns and continuously distracting us from what's far more important in life. Think about it. Whether it's baseball, football, or basketball, all these sports are strategically occurring during times of the year that basically fall right after one another. The NFL season begins in September and ends in January. Baseball typically begins around late March, early April, and ends around early October. The NBA season begins in October and ends sometime around April. And that's not even counting the playoffs. And the cycle continues. Perfectly designed to keep the masses distracted and entertained all year. Then, within these sports, they create false idols, and the athletes are placed on these pedestals to be blindly worshipped by millions of people. Nowadays, even the college players are marketed and worshipped like the professionals are. Think about college sports. The industry became so big and powerful that for years, they were somehow getting away with making over billions of dollars in revenue every year without playing the college athletes who actually played the sports. How is that even legal? Think about college sports. Somehow in this society, people are so invested in their quote-unquote home team that every single year is literally a fight to get the best athletes across the country, even if that means doing it illegally. It's so insane how invested people are in college sports in America, because even if the average person doesn't even understand the sport or even know the players who are performing, they are still quote-unquote die-hard college sports fans because it's quote-unquote tradition and it's what everybody else is into. And this word quote-unquote tradition is a really big one in this country. So people just follow along, wearing the clothes, attending all the games despite the location, and rooting for their players unconditionally. One of the strangest things about college sports to me that's always stood out from the pros is how the best players on the team literally change like every other semester because of players going pro or they're graduating college. Yet people will have the same hype and passion and anticipation for the same college team with a completely different roster from just 6 months ago. You may say, well, this is because they are not bandwagon fans and they are just die-hard fans. Well, this is extremely dangerous because this speaks to the power that Freemasons have. They know to just take a small number of human beings, put them in these almost bigger than life positions, and millions of people will just follow along with those who praise these athletes, right? Think about it. And what's even more sad is that this indoctrination begins on our children at a very young age to distract us. Always remember, everything you see is temporary. Everything you don't see is eternal. Keeping that in mind, think about sports. Everywhere you look, you see the biggest athletes on your TV screen in commercials, on billboards, the front of cereal boxes, potato chip bags, and the list goes on. And I can even make the argument that it's even worse on the so-called black and brown community, because many so-called black and brown girls and boys living in these disenfranchised communities with very little resources and single-parent homes are way more easily influenced to want to be like a Michael Jordan or LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Alex Rodriguez, Steph Curry, Tom Brady, or Patrick Mahomes. And they even publicly state how much these players make within their contract signings. Is that more than a coincidence? For one, sports is one of the fewest outlets that many children in poor communities reside to. So it's almost natural for them to pursue that profession with the added motivation of becoming rich someday. And the Freemasons who run this world know this already. So publicly sharing how much these athletes are making is not a coincidence. I am not stating that sports are evil. I am not stating that wanting to make more money is evil. But I am stating that these players who are placed in these positions are false idols strategically placed there by the Freemasons to distract the masses from focusing on self, worshiping the Most High, and pursuing salvation. And for what it's worth, I do mean the Most High of the Holy Scriptures, or what many of you would call the Bible. If you make these celebrities look larger than life, then as a child or even a young adult, why would you care to focus on anything else when everyone else seems to love these celebrities or these athletes who get to bounce, throw, or hit a ball for a living while making millions of dollars? Not to mention the types of injuries that naturally occur within these sports that could be physically taxing on the body and life-changing. Not to mention CTE, which is a brain disease that occurs in many players that's experienced repetitive brain trauma, specifically in the NFL. But people don't care about this. People don't like to talk about this. There are several athletes who can be seen time and time again throwing up Masonic hand signs, Masonic poses, and being associated with other Luciferians. Do you think this is just a coincidence? Think about it. Many professional athletes show these connections within their commercials, tattoos, and relationships. Why is it that so many of the biggest athletes in the world wear jersey numbers that are very important to Freemasons? I am under the belief that just about all of the athletes that we see being pushed to the masses are Freemasons and or Luciferians, allegedly, such as the GOAT debate between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. What many people don't realize about that debate is that it's actually not even about basketball at all. The greatest of all time, quote unquote, or the GOAT debate is actually an esoteric, fraternal, and Luciferian conversation. And Michael Jordan and LeBron James knows this. Michael Jordan and LeBron James truly don't even care about some silly greatest of all time basketball debate because they understand what it's really about. I am under the belief that they are both very high-ranking Luciferians, allegedly. If you would like to see the open secret about the GOAT debate, then comment GOAT below. If 100 people comment GOAT, then that will be one of my next videos. The amount of power and influence that these athletes are subject to when they are this rich and famous has to be controlled by the Masons some way, somehow, that is beneficial to the Masons and their overall agenda. Think about it. Let's take Michael Jordan for an example, probably the biggest example. His Jordan brand has been one of, if not the most iconic symbols of fashion in urban culture. Poor people who can barely afford his overpriced clothes and shoes try their very hardest to get them a pair, all because of who Michael Jordan has been as a basketball player, but not just that, but also as the person or the icon that's been pushed, by the powers that be across the world. He has been made to look almost like a god when he is only a human being. As difficult as it may seem for many to realize, sports were created with the sole purpose to distract and control the masses, to keep people in a constant cycle of praising and idolizing other human beings. So we do not focus on self, salvation, and giving our undevoted time and attention to the one and only Most High God Almighty. Please understand this and protect your time, your energy, finances, and most importantly, your soul. Do you believe this is all just a coincidence? I don't believe it is. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment who or what you'd like me to make a video on next. I believe it is not only my responsibility, but many others' responsibility to unapologetically raise awareness and speak truth to light to the best of our ability, despite how people may feel about it. If you notice evil and choose to not speak on it, please understand that this makes you a part of the problem and not the solution. Respectfully, there is no in between. All praise be to the Most High. The truth is all that there is, and that's not a coincidence. I have questions. Do you?